The following is rated not safe for work. It contains strong language, adult situations, and lots of spoilers. Discretion is advised.
In the criminal justice system, cinematic-based offenses are considered especially heinous. The dedicated attorneys who investigate these villainous films are members of an elite squad known as the Reels of Justice. These are their stories.
Order, please, order. The Reels of Justice is now in session. Judge Big Ben Haslar presiding. Your eyes for the Honorable Judge Haslar. Be seated. Welcome to the Reels of Justice. Today we're hearing the case of Galaxy Quest versus Star Trek II: The Wrath of Khan. Galaxy Quest is a 1999 sci-fi comedy film about the cast of a 70s space adventure show who get pulled into an intergalactic conflict when their characters are mistaken for real heroes. Star Trek II: The Wrath of Khan is a 1982 sci-fi film about the crew of the Starship Enterprise who find themselves pursued by an old nemesis of James Kirk's past. For those of you unfamiliar with our court proceedings, in civil cases like this, the counsel appointed to represent each side will present their case for why they think their client is the superior movie, and ultimately the jury will render this verdict as to which is the better film. This decision will hereby stand in all rankings and listicles from now on until the end of time. Ad infinitum. Mr. Jack Bennett, you are representing Galaxy Quest. You may present your opening statement.
Thank you. Esteemed members of the jury, I come before you today with a very specific maneuver in mind. I am not here to argue that Wrath of Khan is not a great movie. It is. It's a great movie, deservedly beloved. My purpose here is to argue that Galaxy Quest is a better movie. Perhaps you shake your head in disbelief. I don't know because I can't see you. This is audio only. But just as the needs of the many outweigh the opinions of the few, not only am I going to argue that Galaxy Quest is a better movie, I'm going to argue that Galaxy Quest is a better Star Trek movie than Wrath of Khan.
Oh, wow.
Oh, believe me. I understand what I'm saying. I even understand how you must feel hearing these words right now. And Bob Gordon, the screenwriter of Galaxy Quest, has just shut off this podcast and will refuse to listen to any more. My friends, before you banish me to the dilithium mines on the penal asteroid Ruapenthe, I have to please spend my time giving you this very logical argument. We all know Wrath of Khan. It's great. It's great. I just watched it. It's great. And it's single-handedly turned a tremendous franchise into a successful film series after the mixed reaction to the expensive and slow Star Trek The Motion Picture. It serves as a moving curtain call to one of the most popular and beloved characters in the history of pop culture. And though his fate is reversed a scant year or two after, if you saw Wrath of Khan in the theater in 1982, you had no way to know that. Spock dies. Spock dies in Wrath of Khan. It's the original killing off of Iron Man or Han Solo or James Bond or Wolverine. By the way, spoilers.
No. Gone!
And it's arguably the most entertaining Star Trek film. And in poll after poll, it tops the list as the very best. It's an exciting, emotional, and suspenseful adventure that pays off decades of the bonds we feel to these characters we've grown to know and love as if they were members of our extended family.
Hey, I'll rest here.
Well, that was a short trial.
Ladies and
No,
gentlemen,
Mr. Jack Bennett, you may continue.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's everything you could want in a space movie. But, how did Khan recognize Chekhov? And with that, I've officially won this case. There is no argument that can possibly defeat my logic. I await my prize. Please, no personal checks. I think we can end right here, right? Yep, that's it. I did it.
Well, you do have a heavy
I
lift.
did it. I did it.
Um,
I can't believe I
but
did
I'm
it.
going to ask you to never give up and never surrender. I'm going to move over to Mr. Schlender for his opening statement.
Thank you, Your Honor, and thank you to esteemed opposing counsel for all the kind words about the film I am representing today, The Wrath of Khan. Today is an interesting case. To a discerning audience, they might say, well, they finally did it. They're comparing apples to oranges. But still, I feel there's a lot of value to be had in this conversation. Galaxy Quest, in what can only be described as a bizarre category error, is often referred to as a Star Trek movie. It simply isn't. No more than Spaceballs is a Star Wars movie. So today we have a Star Trek movie and a movie inspired by Star Trek, Master and Epigone. The purpose of today's hearing is to determine the better of the two films, and here we see Star Trek Wrath of Khan is clearly the superior movie. Galaxy Quest's broad comedy ultimately dilutes the more dramatic flares it strove for, as opposed to the well-executed drama and action offered in the Star Trek feature. In Galaxy Quest, we are watching actors we broadly like, frequently seeing Tim Allen or Rickman or Weaver as really just themselves. But in Star Trek, there is no confusion. We see the characters, we see the performance. And lastly, in the great continuum of film, it is indisputable that Wrath of Khan has left a legacy not only for Star Trek, but for the genre in a way that Galaxy Quest simply has not. Thank you.
By Grabthar's hammer, what an opening statement. Mr. Jack Bennett, you may present your first exhibit.
Ben's a great judge.
Oh, I have to do more? Oh, okay. All right, sure. Yeah. I mean, I'm pretty sure I just won the case, but...
Well, you want to open with Chekhov and Khan?
Absolutely, Your Honor, because this is no mere plot point. This was not a boating accident. That's right. I'm so confident in my argument, I can quote unrelated film franchises, and I'm still going to win. Because surely, Chekhov recognizing Khan, that's not a stretch. He would have taken a course in education on the greatest foes of the Federation, complete with a big photo of Khan Noonan Singh, the one we saw in the Space Seed. Khan Noonan Singh, the Latin sheik who looks nothing like Sherlock Holmes. But Khan literally points at Chekhov and says, "You're Chekhov, aren't you? I never forget a face." He never met Chekhov. Chekhov wasn't on the bridge during Space Seed. Chekhov wasn't in the series during Space Seed. And people have made arguments that, oh, well, he could have met Chekhov below deck. Oh, wait, no. This is the guy, his introduction in the movie is him saying, "I never forget a face," while pointing at a face that we never saw him see. Now, you might say, okay, yeah, plot point, sure, that's one plot hole, but it's actually the scab that opens up this giant wound that runs throughout Star Trek Wrath of Khan. It's not really that much of a Star Trek movie. It's inspired as much by the failure of Star Trek the Motion Picture and the success of Star Wars as it is anything else. It's a Star Trek movie featuring the Star Trek characters, but it's an action movie. It's an attempt at a popular sci-fi adventure. And here's the biggest point, it's actually made by people who are not big, huge Star Trek fans. If you listen to the commentary track, Nicholas Meyer, terrific author, terrific novelist. I love the 7% Solution. I have a soft spot for the movie version. And time after time, as a director, he's a terrific director. And he literally says, oh yeah, we had Chekhov be the one that met Khan, but it could have been anybody. He literally says it could have been anybody. It could have been anybody. Just switch.
Mr. Schlender, do you have a rebuttal to the Chekhov plot hole, or whether this
of course,
is not true to the spirit of the original series and more of an
I can address both points, hopefully succinctly for you, Your Honor. I think with the Chekhov point, it is not a stretch to believe that he would have been below deck at the time. There are several fan theories as to his involvement during the episode of Space Seed. I mean, it's only a few episodes later at the beginning of season 2, the episode 1, Amok Time, where he is introduced, and he's not introduced as them saying, "Oh, Chekhov, welcome aboard. You just transferred from the Pegasus," or anything like that. He's already established there. So it's entirely believable he was an established crewman that Khan could have ran into. There's also in the novelization, Raining in Hell. It's one of the Khan novels. Now, granted, it's a novel, it's not a movie, but it is mentioned that Chekhov is one of the officers who helps Khan and his dissidents settle on the planet.
A retcon, if you will.
if you will. But I'm just saying, so this is not a glaring plot hole. And obviously, we all know the real reason this actually happens is because Walter Koenig, the actor who played Chekhov, he was actually in charge of going through and Trek-proofing the script, and he noticed immediately and didn't say anything because he was afraid his role would be reduced. So I think
Smart.
no, it was very smart, and I think it's charming, and it doesn't hurt the movie. Now, this feels a lot like Star Trek. There's a lot of action in the original series. I mean, everyone remembers Kirk fighting the Gorn. Even in Space Seed, there's fisticuffs. So we see the ship shaking back and forth at the beginning with the Kobayashi Maru test. So there's a lot of Star Trek elements in here that do feel authentic to the series, and it's obviously just punched up a bit more because it's a big feature film now.
Okay. Mr. Bennett, did you have another exhibit? Perhaps why Galaxy Quest is a better Star Trek film?
I absolutely do. And it relates back to what I've been saying. The fact is that the fans who are portrayed in Galaxy Quest, they are absolutely stand-ins for Trekkies. And they are the heroes of the movie. In fact, they would not actually be able to save that movie if they hadn't been meticulous fans. The kinds of fans who would spot a plot hole like Chekhov and Khan. I love this idea that it could have happened off screen. You could have had that off screen. Yeah. And James Bond is a Time Lord, and all of his regenerations are between the movies. Doesn't make it canon. It's a plot hole, and everything, the novelization, even that, you weren't transferred in from it doesn't fucking matter. The fact is that you're being an apologist for bad continuity. And bad continuity made by people who shrugged off there was bad continuity and said, it's all right. Because they're not trying to make a Star Trek movie. Where is the social commentary? Where is where are the themes that we can apply to our lives? Where is the villain who is then accepted and given sympathy by the crew of the Enterprise? Where is Kirk's arc? Look at Galaxy Quest. The arc of Jason Nesmith, the character in Galaxy Quest, who starts out as an arrogant braggart, who takes his crew for granted, who takes his fans for granted, has an entire arc in which first he must come clean and admit in the most powerful, dramatic scene in this movie. That's right. It's a comedy that has drama in it. And some could argue great drama in it. The stakes are high. And in this dramatic scene, he has to admit he's a charlatan. And in doing so, sets up the rest of his arc, which is him saving the day and learning to not take his crew for granted, not take the fans for granted. What I think is miraculous about Galaxy Quest, and what I think is what proves Wrath of Khan to be a lesser film, is that Wrath of Khan only works because of the goodwill that we've built up with those characters over the years. It only works because of the baggage. And Galaxy Quest is a single film that introduces characters in the beginning that you love by the end. And you see all those relationships. It's not just Tim Allen and Alan Rickman and Sigourney Weaver. There's no connection between Sigourney Weaver and Tim Allen before Galaxy Quest. We don't even put them in the same category. But we watch Tim Allen, a guy who's known for sitcoms and being a stand-up. We see this guy prove himself as an actor because we didn't believe that he could do it. We didn't believe that the fans could do it. He didn't believe that the fans could do it. The whole movie parallels in the inverse what happens in Wrath of Khan. Wrath of Khan is a movie in which the arc is about, I guess I can lose. It's very much Kirk focusing on himself. The arc in Galaxy Quest is, I can only win with the people around me who I love. And that is a Star Trek lesson.
Okay,
I would
Mr. Schlender, where's the arc?
I would say, with all due respect, Mr. Bennett has it completely backwards. There's not a character growth arc moment in Galaxy Quest. He's still the same braggadocio he was at the beginning. At the end, he has this heartfelt moment that has all the emotional impact of a Scotty Goldsboro song, where he's telling the alien that, like, oh yeah, by the way, I'm a fraud. And what's the comeuppance for it? Nothing. You know, like, of course you should feel bad. You lied to him. You put people's lives in danger, but he still goes through with being a hero. It's a pure fantasy, which is fine. It's a broad family comedy. That's what it was. Is what it was made for. I watched a great documentary all about the making of this movie, Jack. I don't know if you've seen it.
Lies. Full of lies.
You know, so like that's what they were going for. Now, going back to Wrath of Khan, you're right. It is a lot about Kirk's story and his relationships and his relationship with Spock in particularly, and the foil that Khan represents, because the whole time Khan is underestimating Kirk, and Kirk is overestimating himself. And it is Spock's death that ultimately ties that together. That's the cost. That's where Kirk's life led up to, and the emotional impact of Spock. I mean, you did a better job describing it in your opening statement than I ever could. And you mentioned the buy-in, right? Because we have the quote-unquote baggage with the Star Trek characters. Well, the only reason Galaxy Quest even works is because it's trading on the goodwill of Star Trek. It didn't build any of that. It came in, it swooped in, and it's like, we'll take it from here, Star Trek. We're going to use all the goodwill you built up, struggling as a series, making in syndication, making all these movies. We're going to swoop in, and we're taking that. And you're expecting us to, you want the jury to believe that that's better? They're not going to buy that. They know what that is. They know that's just the coming in and snagging the glory from Star Trek. Undeservedly, unearned.
May I rebut?
Yes, you may.
I would suggest that Star Trek II, Wrath of Khan, is doing the exact same thing.
But it's not. It's still Star Trek. It's the same characters. It's the same universe.
Of his rebuttal, Mr. Schlender.
I'm going to get hot, so keep going.
Star Trek II is made by people attempting to course correct a franchise to make more money. You mentioned big family comedy. This is a big family adventure. It's the result of bringing in outsiders to not make a great Star Trek movie, but a great popular sci-fi movie. It is the World War II submarine movie that Star Wars is the World War II dogfight equivalent of. It's trying to make Star Trek more like Star Wars. And it doesn't betray the characters. It absolutely builds on those characters and their relationships. But also, if you watch Galaxy Quest, it actually does that too, and it's funny. It sends up the characters in the beginning, and then by the end, it sincerely delivers to the characters their story. There's a moment at the end that's as good as Return of the King. I swear to God.
Oh, God.
My friends, you bow to no one. You actually see the fans in the audience clapping. And Tim Allen, Jason Nesmith, looks down at them, and he gives them the salute. You look at that scene with Alan Rickman and Quellick, his death scene. The joke is that it's powerful. The joke is that a guy who's been saying a line that's not unlike Live Long and Prosper for so long that he doesn't even care about it anymore, the moment he invests it, it could be Alan Rickman's Oscar clip if he'd been nominated for that film. It's beautiful and powerful.
You know, I wouldn't have objected to that, but still.
You would not have objected?
I would not have objected to Alan Rickman being nominated for an Oscar for anything.
Would.
I feel like every movie except maybe the stupid Robin Hood movie he could have won an Oscar for, honestly. But the fact is that Galaxy Quest does what Star Wars, I'm not sorry. Wrath of Khan is the original J.J. Abrams Star Trek movie. It is Star Trek as Star Wars. Just like Star Wars, the Jedi wakes up, or whatever the hell Episode 7 was called, whatever the hell they were trying to do, it's the same thing. It builds on all the pre-existing goodwill that we have towards the characters we've known for decades, and then fits them in to this plot that doesn't have anything to do with anything except, it's an action revenge movie. It's bad guys and good guys. It's a dogfight in space.
It's Moby Dick. There's literally Moby Dick in Khan's chambers.
Are you
And
calling Kirk a whale? My God, the man's wearing a girdle.
No, it's
a white whale.
In a way, it's almost Ahab versus Ahab. I mean, everything is laid out when you see Khan's room. In the
Kirk's
beginning,
obsessed with Khan?
You see the chessboard. He's obsessed with winning. He's obsessed with beating Khan if Khan's challenging him, absolutely. And he uses that against Khan superiorly. It's what I think
you can't always win.
The lesson. The lesson is there's costs, there's trade-offs, and that's a very Star Trek lesson to learn.
Let's talk about that cost. How hard do they have to work to get Spock down below deck and into that room so he can sacrifice himself? He has a soldier's death. That's great. But there are a bunch of people in that room. Are we trying to say that Spock is the only one on that ship willing to sacrifice himself? What's that say about everybody else?
That they were a bunch of trainees, and most of them were killed in the attack.
And Scotty.
We see that.
I watch Wrath of Khan, and I feel like it's so centered on the upper deck. It's so centered on our three mains that it actually forgets that there's an entire crew. And I love that Galaxy Quest, the lesson is, no, you needed that entire crew. Every single person had a purpose. And only together can we defeat the threat. And in the same way that those fans in Galaxy Quest end up being the heroes of the show for giving the kind of argument that I'm giving right now, you know, in that same way, Galaxy Quest rewards Star Trek fans. It rewards Trekkies for being fans. Whereas Wrath of Khan, it makes you go, well, 1 and 4 are more like the original series. It's a cool movie. It's fun, but it's.
I just don't think. Look, everyone here has seen the original series. There is plenty of action in there. Wrath of Khan is not a standout for its action. What it's a standout for is its drama and the performance that we get from like Leonard Nimoy, from as Spock, you know, as Captain Kirk. These performances, that drama, that's what makes it stand out. It's a gut punch of a movie.
I can see that.
And Nicholas Mayer did say you can't trust fans with your art. Right? I'm paraphrasing him, right? Because if it was up to them, Spock wouldn't have died, right? And so while everyone wants to give Galaxy Quest a lot of kudos, like Will Wheaton saying like, oh, it's the best one because it's about the fans, it celebrates the fans. It's like, does it really though? Like, why are all these people are all fans of Galaxy Quest quite inexplicably? I mean, it's Galaxy Quest Con like 8 or 9 when the movie starts. It's like they've had this many conventions that are always packed every single day, and they never did a movie. There was never a revival series until they get back from space. It doesn't add up. It's like, what are they clinging to? The Star Trek fans, the reason people love the fans is because they did get the movies made. They did get the motion picture. They did get Wrath of Khan. They got The Next Generation, Deep Space Nine. It goes on and on and on. They're still
Picard
making. Oh God! Don't get me started on Picard.
No, you.
I knew you were going to say preemptively. No, but that's what I'm saying. That's why the fans are loved, is because of what's come from them. And Galaxy Quest does not actually pay homage to that because they're still stuck. They are still stuck.
You're right in that Star Trek is an entire franchise. I don't recall this being Galaxy Quest versus Star Trek the series.
You brought it up.
A single film.
You opened that door. By talking about Star Trek fans.
Judge, help!
Now watch me kick the door closed behind me. The fact is,
I think it does make sense in the context of Galaxy Quest, though, being a convention for something this scale.
And if popularity was a sign of quality, I mean, McDonald's is the most popular restaurant in the world. Are you trying to tell me that that's better than the finely prepared steak that is the single film that is Galaxy Quest, that has adventure and comedy and drama and great performances, has the whole thing, and also it has it inspired by Star Trek. It has it not with Star Trek 1 right before it and Star Trek 3 right after it. It has it as its own thing. It's able to, in a single film, do everything that you say the Star Trek series does. It's as funny as 4. I would say it's as dramatic as 2. Of course, we don't have Spock dying, which I concede that is the plot point that makes that movie go from good to great. But also, even watching it recently, you could have taken out Spock's death entirely and nothing about the story would have been missing except for the fact that there was a problem below deck. I mean, it's kind of shoehorned in.
No, you need it for Kirk's arc for sure. That's like that, and that's something that sticks with Kirk. Like that's another thing about Wrath of Khan. It's very sticky for the rest of Star Trek moving forward. I would argue all the way to Generations. I would say that's why Kirk goes below deck at Generations and ultimately gets absorbed by the Nexus, is because of what happened by not taking that action in Wrath of Khan and Spock doing it instead. So it profoundly impacts him. I completely disagree with this idea that it's somehow inessential.
You're right. It makes Star Trek 3 better. I just wish it made Star Trek 2 better.
No, it makes...
Mr. Bennett, did you have any other exhibits to bring up before we pass the baton over to the other side?
Yeah, sure. Let's see. Talk about that. Scotty's an asshole for not sacrificing himself.
Wow. He's a war hero, sir.
He had children.
Yeah, his nephew. That's right.
I can't squeeze through the door.
Yeah, we get all the it's that upper deck mentality. It's that whole thing of like, no, you know who's really important? The three people at the top of the call sheet. And it's like Scotty's nephew dies, and who gives a shit? We have to have a giant bagpipe infused funeral for Spock. By the way, Spock, my favorite character in Star Trek. Everybody's favorite character in Star Trek, except for
my favorite character is Bones.
Well, you know, Bones is badass. Bones is great. I feel like the miracle that I look at when I see Galaxy Quest, and I understand the passion. I understand the passion of Star Trek fans. I understand it. And I watch Star Trek movies and I love them. And I'm saying if you have two movies that are both great, and you put them next to each other, which one has the giant plot hole? Which one is beholden to Star Wars? And I don't want to pit franchises against each other, but Galaxy Quest can exist without Star Wars, and Star Trek II Wrath of Khan cannot. It was the redirecting of the franchise to be more popular, to be more action-packed. And I know there's
more like the show.
Well, more like the show only in the sense that the characters are what the actors want them to be. But that's like saying, you know, the actors shouldn't drive the narrative, just like the fans shouldn't. The fact is that the original Star Trek the Motion Picture, that was what Gene Roddenberry wanted. He wanted a series that was more like 2001 than like Star Wars. It was the anti-Star Wars. It was cerebral. It was hard sci-fi. That's what the original series was. Yes, there was action, but it wasn't a military action movie. There was more to it. Wrath of Khan is a great plot engine. And Genesis is an intriguing idea, but it's the MacGuffin of the film. It's not part of the plot. And the fact is that when I watch Wrath of Khan just as a single movie, divorced from the rest of the series, like I said, it's a great movie. It's really entertaining. But I walk away from it thinking, oh, the lesson is, yeah, if you act like an asshole, your friends can die. That lesson is also in Galaxy Quest. And so is all the other stuff I'm talking about.
It's not in Galaxy Quest. None of his friends die. They just kill off some of the little alien guys, and there's no emotional impact. We went over this. Remember? Scotty Goldsborough.
I love those alien guys. I love Quellic. I love Teb. Would you
like to rest on the little alien guys?
I'm just saying that in one movie, I have as much affection for characters that I just met in a movie that's less than 2 hours long than I do for a movie that's trading off of an entire series. That, by the way, an entire series that if you go back and you watch that OG series and then go directly into the movies, you'll say, hey, Space Seed, Khan, Chekhov, never happened. You're apologizing for bad writing.
Really driving that home.
It absolutely sums up for me everything that's wrong with Wrath of Khan. It is not a movie that rewards you for being a Trekkie. It's a movie that exists in spite of you being a Trekkie. It's a movie
I
that
respectfully
exploits you
disagree.
for being a Trekkie.
Galaxy Quest literally exploits you for being a Trekkie. That's the whole point.
That's funny.
They're the ones like I said, they're like stolen valor.
We need to
basically.
get
Come on.
this court back on the rails, though. So I'll pass this over to the defense. Mr. Schlender, if you have any exhibits you would like to bring forward.
All right. Thank you, Your Honor. So I guess I have a couple points, a few things that have been brought up and are back and forth here. I guess if we talk about the casts of the film, as we discussed, we talk about in this movie, we talk about Spock and Kirk, but when we talk about Galaxy Quest, everyone always says Tim Allen or Alan Rickman. Again, in this great documentary I watched, the characters' names are very rarely mentioned. It's always referred to as Tim Allen did this or Alan Rickman did that. It's just the way the movies resonate. We resonate with the characters and the performances in The Wrath of Khan in a way we just don't for Galaxy Quest. And again, a lot of that has to do with the fact that it's a broad comedy, right? So we see hold on a minute. I lost my notes.
Oh, and I passed it to you just for that.
I know, right? So anyway, so that's what I'm saying is like
comedy. It can be nuanced. It can exist in two different ways. Oh, I'm sorry. I was just taking my own notes. Nuanced comedy can exist broadly and subtly. There are subtle jokes as well. Many throwaway jokes in Galaxy Quest. Sorry, guys. Just taking.
Oh yeah, they threw them right in the trash.
Hold on, I'm just taking. Here, hold on. I'm taking a call. Yeah. No, I'm on with this guy who is so clouded by his emotions that he can't be logical.
I am being logical. We are sticking to the facts. No, one of the reasons I got confused is because it was basically a point that I made, and I did not want to be redundant or repeat myself.
Thank you. We appreciate it.
Yeah, and so I guess then what I'd move on to, again, this is kind of a point we touched on, is that Wrath of Khan, it does something that Galaxy Quest is simply not equipped to do, and that's it invites us into a fully realized and lived-in world, right? We have the amazing original series, the great animated series, and even the motion picture, which this court found not guilty, which I heartily agree with, right? Before this, we have a huge back catalog for Star Trek, and so this really elevates the stakes in a way that Galaxy Quest is just incapable of, because it's an hour and a half movie with brand new characters trying to trade on the goodwill of Star Trek fans. Like, hey, here's Tim Allen, but he's really William Shatner, and that unfortunately results in the Galaxy Quest characters coming off as a bit flat, with the exception of Weaver's embonpoint, as it were. But that
what?
her embonpoint, it's a fancy word for boobs. So
well, it's not so fancy anymore.
I know. Well, hey, sometimes you read a good word, and I'm like, how am I going to describe Sigourney Weaver's breast today? And embonpoint fit the bill.
This is how you're throwing away your case for Wrath of Khan, Mr. Schlender?
No. So my point is, with Wrath of Khan, we are invited into this world that we can live in, as Jack said, it's still very accessible if you're not a Star Trek fan, because you can relate to the drama and the action of it. And if you are a Star Trek fan, it's going to feel very familiar because you know the characters. You'll know how they'll act in these situations. And the action is punched up, which is nice. The action was punched up in the show, too. Kirk is known as the rough and tumble captain, the tactician. He's brilliant in his own way, in a way that captains like Picard or Sisko or Janeway just aren't. And they didn't try to change that for this movie. And it works.
Okay, so Mr. Bennett, like point blank, no one knows anything about Star Trek. Do you think Galaxy Quest or Wrath of Khan would win them over more?
I would just like to say, flat characters, Sam Rockwell, Tony Shalhoub,
doing the same bit the whole movie. Yes.
Doing the same bit the whole movie. I have heard so many people quote Galaxy Quest. That's not right. That's from Guy. That's Sam Rockwell's character. I just had a really great idea. That's Tony Shalhoub. That's Fred Kwan. Also, every single character in Galaxy Quest has a great scene, has a great bit. Where's Uhura's great scene in Wrath of Khan? Where's Sulu's great scene in Wrath of Khan? Also, how many years between the end of the series and Star Trek the Motion Picture? Anybody know? How many
tell
years
us. Go for
in
it.
real time?
Like 15,
16,
20, somewhere in there?
16 years.
How many years between the release of Galaxy Quest and the announcement of the Galaxy Quest series that only didn't happen because of Alan Rickman's death?
16 years?
We can say all we want that Galaxy Quest didn't inspire the franchise that Star Trek did, but we'll never know. Unfortunately, we will never know.
I would just like to say, for the record, when I mentioned the inspiring the franchise bit, that was internal to Galaxy Quest, the movie itself, not Galaxy Quest effect in real life. I'm saying with that kind of fan base and those kind of conventions, that would have spawned at least a movie in the movie.
It spawned the Next Generation. Galaxy Quest: The Adventure Continues. That's the end of the movie.
Yeah, right at the end of the movie, after they go on their adventure, like, where was that before? The timetable just doesn't add up, and it's like, what about the fans? That is what made that happen. That's a disconnect. They don't explain how the fans made that happen the way we know how Star Trek fans made it happen.
I think that you can actually say, and I'll answer the question with this answer as well. I think that you can actually say that the parallels are there and they are earned whether or not Star Trek exists or not. I actually believe that you can watch Galaxy Quest and know nothing about Star Trek, and you can see, oh, at the end, a big thing happened at a Galaxy Quest convention. It probably brought them a lot of international attention, and then the very next thing you see is that the show came back. And I think that works from a screenwriting perspective. And also, I think Galaxy Quest is a complete movie that is a complete story that can exist without any other movies or any other series. Wrath of Khan cannot. Wrath of Khan can only exist in the context of the greater Star Trek universe.
Well, and it's called Star Trek 2. I mean, it is deliberately a sequel here. It is a deliberate continuation.
And it's also a single movie that I find to be not as good as Galaxy Quest, as either a movie or a Star Trek movie.
Mr. Schlender, did you have any further exhibits?
Yeah, I guess the last thing I would like to say, Your Honor, and it's again something I just touched on, it's again this idea about Galaxy Quest being about the fans and for the fans. And I just don't understand this lack of like movies and features that we're seeing in it. Jack talks about how it comes back at the very end of the movie. And again, all the characters, they just get to keep living out their fantasy. Again, no growth. Basically what this is that Trekkies in real life, right? The reason they're obsessed with the show is because of the high philosophical concepts that Jack alluded to earlier. The experimental tech, the sci-fi, like the motion picture being a high sci-fi, Gene Roddenberry's vision. Who's the Gene Roddenberry of Galaxy Quest? What attracts all these fans to Galaxy Quest? Because we never see it. The show doesn't appear to be particularly sophisticated in any way that we get to see. So what is drawing those fans there? But we all know the reason people are obsessed with Galaxy Quest in the movie is because Trekkies are obsessed with Star Trek. So again, it's just trading in on that. They just want you to do a swap without actually thinking about it. Like, what was the big philosophical episode of Galaxy Quest? There was no Measure of a Man episode of Galaxy Quest. Now, granted, Measure of a Man is the Next Generation, but even that one with the guy, half his face is white, half his face is black, Galaxy Quest wasn't doing stuff like that. They weren't exploring issues like that. So it's like Lord of the Rings.
That's Wrath of Khan, right? You're talking about Wrath of Khan?
I'm saying Wrath of Khan did have those kind of emotional messages. And I'm saying that if in Galaxy Quest you want us to believe this is a love letter to the fans, explain to me why they're fans. Because you don't see it. The only reason they're fans in Galaxy Quest is because Star Trek has so many fans. And that's what they're trading off of. They didn't create anything unique. They didn't create anything that makes you think. They're just trading on the goodwill of Star Trek fans. And it's like Lord of the Rings. There's so much stuff that is inspired by Lord of the Rings, right? But it's Tolkien's universe that people really respect, admire, seek to emulate. People learn Klingon. People learn Elvish. Galaxy Quest has none of that. Wrath of Khan has all of that. And I will rest there, Your Honor.
Gene Roddenberry didn't
All right.
work on Wrath of Khan. He did.
Yeah, but they still
I'm sure he cashed that check, though.
Oh, he
Hey.
cashed the check. He cashed
Hey,
the
but
check.
it still respected the show's vision.
Did it? If Gene Roddenberry quit it, I don't know.
Order in my court, please. All sides have rested their cases. The attorneys will now present their
No,
closing
I didn't rest my
arguments.
case yet.
Mr.
I didn't give my closing argument.
Bennett, I rested it for you.
No.
The closing's after this.
Yeah, the closing.
But you have the closing arguments
Yes.
that you may elucidate.
It's not a real court, Jack. We don't know all the terms.
Hey, can I still win if I accuse you guys of this being a kangaroo court?
Everyone
you already
does it.
did that. I think.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's old hat. Very old hat.
Oh, okay. Well, then never mind.
You may present your closing argument, sir.
My friends, my allies, my compatriots, like our favorite Vulcan, do not allow your judgment to be compromised by your emotions. Every part of the argument being made against Galaxy Quest can be summed up as, but I like Star Trek better. I'm more invested in Star Trek before I see Wrath of Khan. Therefore, I'm invested in Wrath of Khan. And every dismissal, Galaxy Quest doesn't do that. Galaxy Quest doesn't do that. All of those examples are from everything outside of Wrath of Khan in the Star Trek continuity. And the fact is that Galaxy Quest does do that if you don't just dismiss it as a broad comedy. If you watch it, and you watch it like it's a movie, and you don't just say, this isn't what it's like, from your porch, get off my lawn, Galaxy Quest. The fact is that Galaxy Quest actually is a nuanced movie that works on two levels, ironically and sincerely. You can watch it as if it's not even a comedy, and it comes across as a comedic adventure. There are moments of awe in Galaxy Quest, looking up at the Omega-13. There are moments that are not just hilarious, but they're also really sound sci-fi. I love that in the climax of Galaxy Quest, you have a maneuver that wouldn't be out of place in Star Trek, dragging the mines. Yet it doesn't appear in Star Trek. It's actually a new idea. You have a rock monster, like the kind that Shatner always wanted to see in Star Trek. Yes, all of this stuff exists in a world where Star Trek exists, but also, if you didn't know anything about Star Trek, you could still enjoy Galaxy Quest completely. And if you know Star Trek, can you fashion some kind of rudimentary lathe? It gives you an extra giggle. Because it's a movie that works on this level and it works on that level. And just remember, from a logical perspective, Khan couldn't know Chekhov. I rest my case. Khan could not know Chekhov. I rest my case.
Well, keep your finger on that Omega-13 button while Schlender delivers his closing argument.
So I could go back in time and have him not do it?
Only 13 seconds.
And you know how I talk. Podcasting, the final frontier. These are the trials of Reels of Justice. Its 5-year mission to explore strange movies, to seek out the innocent and to prove the guilty, to boldly go where indeed. I, of course, want you to go into the jury room and vote for Wrath of Khan, its superior characterization, its lived-in world, its lore building, and not cashing in on anything unearned. But more than that, I ask you, do indeed go boldly. Leave your mark. Make your stance clear, for no matter how you rule, there will be controversy. And I would like to add one final note. As we all know, I'm a very fastidious researcher, and I reached out to the director of Wrath of Khan, Nicholas Mayer, and he was kind enough to engage me in email correspondence, and I asked him this question, because he's famously quoted as saying, Galaxy Quest is a better Star Trek movie. And so I asked him, I said, you said it's a better Star Trek movie, but what about film qua film? What is the better film? And to that he said, what an entertaining question. Let me quote. He said, and I quote, what an entertaining question. Though I could hardly provide a response with any pretense to objectivity, artists are not the best judges of their creations in any case. What does best mean anyway? Why can't they both be fun? Well, thank you for the response, Mr. Mayor. And we will leave it in the jury's capable hands, but I find it very telling that he did not just come out and say Galaxy Quest. And if you read between the lines, he clearly thinks Wrath of Khan is the better film. Thank you.
Thank you all. Members of the jury, Mr. Maynard Bangs, Mr. Big Ben Haslar, and Mr. The needs of the many outweigh the needs of Ryan Luis Rodriguez.
Oh.
You have all heard the facts concerning this case. It is now up to you to determine which film is the superior movie. The bailiff will escort you to the deliberation room to render your verdict. Did they ever end up going to a star in these movies?
Okay, gentlemen. This is a tough one. It's like choosing my favorite child. You can't do this to me. I love them both equally. But I gotta say, I saw this movie. I saw Galaxy Quest opening night, 1999. I had only seen Insurrection before that. I had never seen the original Star Trek series. I'm not a Trekkie, never have been. Not as a qualifier or anything like that. I'm not saying it's bad. It's not my thing. But I do have healthy esteem for the Trek franchise. I think that Wrath of Khan is probably the best of the bunch. My favorite is 6. But if I have to pick one that is the best, it's Wrath of Khan. But I don't know. Pitting these two together, this is so hard. I don't know what to do. Rob, what are you thinking?
Well, I'm in a similar boat as you are. I'm not a Trekkie. I didn't grow up on Star Trek. I've seen the original series now. I just thought it was something I should consume. Seemed like a pop culture thing to know. And I have to say, this is to Wrath of Khan's disadvantage. The first time I saw Wrath of Khan was this week.
Ooh.
So I'd never seen it before. People just kind of, I think it was, people talked about it a lot, but I always felt I needed to watch the series in order to go into it. And
so you knew like all the quotes going in.
So I knew all the quotes. I knew Spock's death. And I have to say that probably, and knowing that he would come back, that probably really tampered the emotional impact. Because I mean, if you see it the first time and it surprises you, you can still relive that emotional impact later. But if you know it's coming, it didn't really hit me with anything. So that was a disadvantage to Wrath of Khan, unfortunately. Galaxy Quest I've seen 2.5 dozen times, probably. Some of the things that were brought up, a lot of time was harped on the plot hole element. That didn't really bother me so much. Maybe because I'm not a Trekkie, but it didn't really bother me. But some of the things that were brought up is, could these films exist in a vacuum without Star Trek? And I don't think either film could exist without Star Trek. They both need Star Trek in both reality and non-reality. Because like we paint our knowledge of like Shatner onto Tim Allen. And we understand both Shatner's on-screen character and off-screen character.
Especially the off-screen character.
Yeah, and that paints our knowledge of Tim Allen's character. And so that's why we feel we already know him, because we do. We know him as Shatner, and he's that guy that we already kind of know. And that's similar to a lot of the characters that are in Galaxy Quest. But I do think the actors feel lived in, even if the characters they portray are very tropey and I would say flat, but the actors underneath are not. And that's really who we see most of the movie, is the actual actors trying to fill the roles. And
I will say that Galaxy Quest has probably a better ensemble than
I'd say
Khan does.
I'd say cast to cast, Galaxy Quest has it.
I mean, come on, Tony Shalhoub, the Lube. How can you turn down the Lube? Everybody loves the Lube.
Yeah, I mean, and
Rickman was robbed of an Oscar. That hill I will die on. I don't mind.
I mean, Sam Rockwell steals almost every scene.
He's outstanding. Everybody in this movie fucking crushes.
Even down to Justin Long, even down to all the aliens whose names I can't remember.
All the Thermians. You can just call them the Thermians.
The Thermians. I couldn't remember their species name.
The termites.
Even Rainn Wilson. Everybody just
he's one.
Everybody's working really hard. And
Don't
one thing that
Phil Mitchell. Oh, I'm sorry.
And one thing that
the bathroom's that way.
One thing Schlenzo said is, that Star Trek had all these themes that made it popular. What was Galaxy Quest thing? The characters say it repeatedly through the movie. It's the friendship of the crew that's what not only attracts all the human fans, that's what attracts the termites. That's what they found powerful about that show. It turned out that's not the way it was in real life until they go through this experience, and then it becomes real life. Ben, yeah.
I'm similarly torn. I love both of these movies, and I love them for different reasons. So it's really hard for me to compare them. I do think they're both brilliant in that the way they were able to like continue something on, like building what became before them. Because yeah, the motion picture, it didn't win a whole lot of people over. Making it sort of an action film, while J.J. Abrams did try that, Wrath of Khan hits those notes so much better, and it still feels genuine to all the characters and how they love each other. But they're not all there. Yeah, I agree. Like, not every character gets screen time, and they should. Galaxy Quest does do that better. Galaxy Quest has a brilliant device of being able to make commentary on both the actors and the show itself, which I'm in awe of. And I don't know.
Pointing out that it works sincerely and ironically, I think, was the perfect encapsulation of that.
Right.
Yeah. What it was, I think Schlender brought up in his opening. He says that the broad comedy dilutes the drama in Galaxy Quest.
I don't think it does at all.
I completely disagree. Between the two, again, I have to admit, I saw it very late. I knew it would happen, so Spock's death didn't have any emotional impact to me. But the moment where Tim Allen has to confess to Mathazar has incredible emotional relevance. When Quellic dies and Alan Rickman, Dr. Lazarus has to, tell him, the line, that works. And when Tim Allen passes the torch and makes Mathazar the leader, all of that has tons of emotional resonance. And what's amazing is that a beat before or a beat later, they're doing just a hilarious gag. And that they can flip that switch so effortlessly or do something that's emotionally powerful while at the same time being funny is, I think, something that makes Galaxy Quest special. So to me, if I'm looking at the two movies side by side, both have drama, both have action. Only one has comedy.
Yeah, Bones.
Bones is funny. But I think Wrath of Khan is a great film. But if I ask myself sincerely, what is the movie I see myself watching dozens more times? For me personally, it's Galaxy Quest.
So you're locking in?
For me, it's equal.
Yeah.
I love them both.
Okay, Ben.
Oh man, this is hard.
I know, that's why I'm leaving it up to you.
It can't be up to him unless he makes a certain decision.
I don't know, because both cases they're strong. I think I personally prefer Wrath of Khan, but going just based off the cases, man, there were stellar points made on the side of Galaxy Quest, and I love both of these movies. I don't want to be the one to decide, but I do think the case was stronger for Galaxy Quest, even though I do prefer Wrath of Khan. So I think I'm going to have to lock it in. I'm sorry, Schlender, don't quit the show.
Okay, well, I adore Galaxy Quest. I adore Wrath of Khan, but just because of the effort put into this by Dylan, I can't let it be all three going for Galaxy Quest. So I'm going to go Wrath of Khan, but we know what that means. Galaxy Quest wins.
Never gave up and never surrendered.
May I offer something? Hello, I have just walked into this room, and I would like to actually suggest that there is a split decision that you can make.
We can't do that. Actually, no, we don't do split decisions.
As you will recall earlier, the jerk attorney, who is the guest, said that he tried to prove that Galaxy Quest is a better Star Trek movie as well.
But that's not.
Perhaps you can say that Galaxy Quest is the better movie, but Wrath of Khan is the better Star Trek movie.
Oh, okay, I'll live with that. But yeah, Wrath of Khan's the better Star Trek movie because it's actually a Star Trek movie. I will give it that.
Thank you for giving me an audience.
I will give it
that.
that.
Get out of here! Get out of here! You
if
termite.
we settle anything, Galaxy
Get the hell
Quest
out of here!
I'm a Dalmatian.
Isn't a technically a Star Trek movie. It's not that. So I agree with that. But better movie. I think its ability to do that next dimension with comedy. That was reiterating my thing. But that's what we're here to decide. What's the better movie?
Let's go tell that very handsome judge, guys.
He's handsome.
Mr. Foreman, have you reached a verdict?
We have, Your Honor, In the case of Galaxy Quest versus Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan, we find in favor of a Galaxy Quest.
That's all around. let's hear the angry fan mail. Come on in.
Dylan hasn't said a word, and it scares me.
Galaxy Quest is to be considered the superior movie in all listicles from here on until the end of time. The student has become the master, and Mr. Schlender is sentenced to not quit his position, but serve time, providing it counsel for at least 100 more cases.
Oh my God, no! Hey, I said it's a 5-year mission. I think we're like 3 in.
And 2 years after this, he is out of here.
Hello, this is Ensign Yakov reporting to you live from outside the Reels of Justice. Mr. Yak Bennett, would you care to share your thoughts on the jury's verdict?
Well, I only listened to a little bit of what the jury was saying through the door, but I think I really came in strong and won the argument with the fact that Khan could not recognize Chekhov. I feel really confident that that's why I won, and that I am right.
You're not.
Thank you. And here comes Dylan Dwayne Swender.
One more time, please.
No, that is what we're going with. You are Dylan J. Schlender, right? I never forget the face. I remember you. Could you tell us how you felt about the jury's verdict?
Look, they're two very, very good movies. Jack is a great opposing counsel. He's very passionate about Galaxy Quest. Everyone should see his documentary. I believe it's just called Galaxy Quest.
Never Surrender.
Never Surrender.
Never surrender.
And it's great. A lot of good information in there. I'm not really surprised that this is the way the court went. You know, it's kind of the direction we've been trending. But don't worry, I'm not quitting. I'm here for it all, baby.
Thank you very much. Now, there's always the chance that Star Trek 4 will be better than Galaxy Quest, because it has some comedy. Anyway, let's get back to the studio for the post-trial analysis and all.
And it has nuclear whistles.
Nuclear whistles.
I do love part
I'm not
4.
touching that accent.
Dylan J. Swender. I don't know. It's hard.
That was excellent.
You started
Can't wait to
slipping
listen
into
to
you started slipping into Swedish. So, hey, how's it going?
It's kind of all the same,
Well,
Brian. They know. They're all the same.
Well,
Yeah.
Jack, well done,
It's a
sir.
Swedish show.
And I love being able to talk about Star Trek
Absolutely.
on this show. So anyone else who wants to come on and talk about any Star Trek movie, that's fine. We've done a few.
You'll be against me because I got dibs.
We have to
all
talk
can.
about the rest of the original series because I have to watch them because I haven't
Yes.
seen any of them. I've now seen the two that we've done, the motion picture. And,
You're seeing them in order.
and Wrath of Khan, and I'm seeing them in order. So it's very
We need someone to do Search for Spock. I will happily defend or prosecute, whatever the case may
Sure,
be.
we will do Search for Spock
Well,
very
one of
much
the
in the
things-
future.
It's really kind of lovely, though, that all of them get reappraised at some point, because you get that, I'm going to peel back the curtain a little bit now and say that Rob and I did discuss, well, what about Galaxy Quest versus Part 4? And I was like, you know what? I feel so passionately about Galaxy Quest. I want to put it up against the big one, Wrath of Khan is responsible for so many people's love of Star Trek. But it also is kind of controversial because of the way that it did put it in the direction that it eventually went to. But if you look at all the movies, they all kind of have a different flavor to them and a different tone and a different, even the ones that have the same guy behind the camera, 3 and 4 are both Leonard Nimoy directing. And there's so many differences in just the baseline approach to the material. It's almost like Bond films, where it's like everybody has a different favorite Bond movie. And I think everybody has a different Star Trek movie. That's their favorite.
I have a slightly, maybe it's a plot hole question. Maybe Schlenzo can answer me. When Chekhov gets to the Zeta Alpha 6, or no, this one's 5. When he gets there and he finds the thing that says SS Botany Bay, what is that?
That's his ship.
That's the ship that he was
that's
marooned
Khan's
on.
ship.
That Khan was marooned on.
You
Right,
mean
but
what
the ship-
the
but the
actual
sh-
strap was?
But he Chekhov and Terrell seem to find Khan and his crew within the SS Botany Bay. But in Space Seed, which we watched, it drifts off into space. It gets abandoned.
No,
They
first of all,
discard the ship.
They do discard the ship, but they're not in the ship there. I can only suggest that they took a souvenir or two from the Botany Bay. Maybe they got more materials from it before they stranded them. I mean, there's a big time gap between the end of Space Seed and when they actually get stranded. You know, they're not like over the planet right away. So,
right.
I just feel like, honestly, man, that whole, when I was talking about the plot hole and all that kind of stuff, like it really does. Continuity bothers me, like big continuity holes bother me because it kind of suggests the people making the movies don't care about them as much as the people watching them. And it's like, it does bother me that all you had to do was switch places between Chekhov and Sulu. And then you don't have any continuity error. You don't have any.
I can totally see Walter Koenig being like, no, though I'm just going to.
Yeah.
Well, I think behind the scenes, and tell me if I'm wrong, but I think behind the scenes there was a little bit of, is George going to do the movie? And maybe, and also, like, having just seen the movie, I do think Chekhov is the more effective character to be the guy compromised. Because you look at boyish Chekhov and you trust that guy isn't compromised with the little eel in his ear, and it does work dramatically, but in that same way that I was arguing in the actual case, to me it does kind of say like, what, whatever, like we picked the guy at random. That's basically what Nicholas Meyer says on the commentary track.
But
and
now we know
that stuff really bothers me.
It's really Walter Koenig's deception that made it happen.
I really don't think
hilarious. I didn't know that.
Yeah. I don't think that's unfair to nitpick, Jack. I mean, like, having watched the first season of Picard, I mean, it's full of stuff like that. And
yeah,
that's just one.
Like,
when you add up, it's worse.
Yeah, it's when it adds up, it's worse. I do think there's enough play there to say, look, he met him below deck. I mean, Khan does a lot of stuff off camera in Space Seed. I mean, so,
yeah,
sure, and I understand that, but for me, it's the leak that springs and then the whole dam collapses, because it really does point to me the way that Wrath of Khan is a little more cynically trying to pull it into that populist Star Wars kind of area, whereas the original movie, to its detriment, is trying so desperately to not be that, to be something else, to be.
Well, I respectfully disagree.
All right, I want to.
No. It was trying to be 2001: A Space Odyssey, which was very popular.
Move on.
That's what
trying to move on. So, Jack, you were probably our quickest turnaround for a guest. You were a guest juror like last month, and now you're back. You were here representing. I don't know if anything's changed. You got anything new to discuss? Boy, what you've been up to for the past 3 weeks?
I just got a text from Bob Gordon, who wrote Galaxy Quest. I said to him, I'm literally on a podcast arguing that Galaxy Quest is a better Star Trek movie than Wrath of Khan. And he wrote back, heresy! And then, and then in parentheses, but ... go get him! So there you go.
To our episode.
But that's the thing. Bob is a tremendous Star Trek fan. And Dean, who directed it, was a Star Trek fan who enjoyed Star Trek ironically and sincerely at the same time. And then I think that's what he brings to Galaxy Quest. I think it's more nuanced and loving than it was being portrayed, while we were doing the trial. But anyway,
I had to go hard on it. I love Galaxy Quest. I just want to say to all your Galaxy Quest friends from your documentary, like the director, I love Galaxy Quest. This is a show. I had to go hard against it,
Whereas
Galaxy Quest is fantastic. Yeah.
I love Wrath of Khan so much. I watched it very recently, and I cried. Mm-hmm. I cried when Spock died. I know he comes back in the very next movie. It's called The Search for Spock. Do you think it ends with them not finding him?
Not finding Spock.
Yeah, part 4 is, where is he? Where is that guy?
Yeah, it might not. It might not.
I actually saw Wrath of Khan in an old theater house, and William Shatner did a Q&A at the end of it. My father, who grew up loving Star Trek, and Kirk was like a hero of his, like he got to meet him at the end. So Wrath of Khan is just a very special movie.
Daryl reminds me of Kirk a little bit.
Oh yeah, a little bit. I would say
see some similarities.
The line that gets me going, the line that gets the waterworks going, is when Scotty says he's dead already, and then there's this silence, and
he's
it's
dead already.
Yeah, I just love drama. I still don't know why it had to be Spock who had to go all the way down there. I wish that had been.
I assumed it was because he was a Vulcan. He was the only one who could live long enough in the radiation to actually make the
Well,
the
yeah,
I
shutdown
kind of
procedures he
assumed that
needed.
too.
I
that's
know.
interesting.
Yeah,
His
his physiology was different.
Well,
even
and
watching
his
it
logical
recently-
brain was
Sure,
like, I
sure.
could
Okay,
do it. Yeah.
listen, we could talk all night, and I can't. We do need to try to keep this within some kind of range.
Okay.
I'm going to jump all the way to recommendations, Jack. We always ask for recommendations from our guests for films that you think people should see. So, what is a movie that you think people should see?
Real quick, I'll just plug Posehn.
Okay, here's your plugs.
New Music Sucks. Posehn, New Music Sucks. Go watch it on YouTube. I directed it. It was Posehn's comedy metal record, and we made a music. I think I didn't plug that last time. So New Music Sucks. Look up my short film. Everyone's a Critic. I think you guys will like that. I think everyone's. I think you can find that online. I think if you go on the IMDb page, you can find it. The link is in there. It's a short film I made last summer just for fun. Don't ask me what it means. I don't know. And recommendations. We're talking about all this sci-fi stuff, and I'm gonna go with sort of a weird one. I've been thinking about this a lot lately. I really like the Steven Soderbergh version of Solaris that James Cameron produced. A lot of people don't like that one. They prefer the really sort of hard sci-fi of the original, the Tarkovsky version. And of course, it's not the book. It's a different sort of idea. It had a really low audience grade. I think it got like a D-. People went to see it, but in the theater and said, "What the hell is this?" And it's definitely a slow burn, but it's a really interesting movie that is kind of like the way that we're talking about Star Trek. It actually is greater themes of existence with sort of an emotional core. And that way I prefer it to the Russian version. And I think it's George Clooney's best performance. And everybody forgets that the other actors in it are Viola Davis in an early performance, and Jeremy Davies, and then, of course, Natasha McElhorn, who I think that's how you pronounce her last name, Irish gal, who is able to suggest a lot of different things in a very subtle performance. I really like that movie, and I just watched it again the other day, and it
holds up.
interesting.
It
You know who's
really
going to have a
holds up.
hot take on this? Ryan.
Yeah.
Dude, it's Soderbergh. I fucking love Soderbergh. That's my jam.
Oh yeah.
I was there opening
out of
weekend.
sight.
I was as a smart 16-year-old. That's not true. I wasn't smart. But man, did I love me some
Smartly
Solaris.
dressed.
I didn't even see the Russian version until like a year and a half
Yeah.
ago. But I think I still prefer the Soderbergh version. Not only
Well, the
because
Russian
it's half
version
as
is
long.
great. Yeah, exactly. The Russian version is great almost as a meditation.
Yes.
And it's
Yeah.
even more than 2001. It's a glacier-paced kind of meditation on existence.
Ooh, I'm going to like it then.
Yeah.
I
Well,
love slow space movies.
he's an incredible filmmaker too. And Stalker, his film Stalker, is another one that I.
Oh, awesome. Yeah.
Yeah, but the Soderbergh version does kind of the same thing, and then gives you this other side of it. It's like Spock. It's half human. It's half logic and half human. So it's hard sci-fi that's also about emotions. Yeah, it's a great flick.
Dig it. Schlenza, what's your recommendation?
Well, I'm going very obvious. Star Trek IV: The Voyage Home has to be my recommendation. Keep an eye out for a friend of the show, Kirk Thatcher, as Punk on the Bus. Voyage Home is like the inverse of Galaxy Quest. Our crew has to travel back in time and blend into the go-go 80s. This is widely considered to be one of the most accessible Trek movies. Michael Piller called it the date movie because, as we all know, this was the key to get Trekkies more dates and inoffensive comedy. If you liked Wrath of Khan and you like Galaxy Quest, smash them together and enjoy this whale of a movie.
The whale of a recommendation.
Galaxy Quest is funnier.
It is.
Big Ben, you were our judge, so what is your recommendation?
What's your
I'm going to
recommendation?
recommend.
Thank you.
I'm going to recommend, and I wonder if
Recommend! Oh my God! Why have we got Ben?
It
You're
was
so
right
good.
there.
Recommend.
You're so good at this.
It's the only Kelvin film that I actually like, and I'll go with Star Trek Beyond. It has a lazy title, but it's a decent movie. It feels a lot more like Trek to me than the previous two, both in character, tone, and message. It's just an amped up one with a bigger budget and higher adrenaline. I kind of love how much it references Enterprise, which is the one Trek show I'm pretty sure I was the only one on Earth who tuned into the series finale for.
The Beagle.
The characters feel a bit more like their original counterparts to me as well, unlike the previous two films. And I get the impression that they really like each other, like particularly Kirk and Spock and McCoy and Spock, because I never understood why in the Abrams films they had these characters at each other's throats all the time. The feeling of family was one of the best things about Star Trek, and it's present in this film. They certainly argued and debated in the original, but the characters all loved and respected one another, even if they didn't respect Bill Shatner. Perhaps non-coincidentally, it's the only Kelvin film that did the worst in the box office, proving when I'm happy, the general audiences aren't, and vice versa, at least when it comes to Star Trek. But Star Trek Beyond is available for rent at most of the standard platforms.
Come on, people. Don't you want to see Ben happy? We all just want to see Ben happy.
The people have spoken.
Do you guys want an exclusive?
Sure. We love
And
Oh, okay, never mind.
Don't listen to Dylan ever.
Damn it, Dylan.
This doesn't actually show up in my documentary at all, but Bob followed up with another text. He said, fun fact, I was opposed to Saris being a prosthetics character because he couldn't picture that design yelling, Khan! But then, of course, you watch the movie and the rage comes through, and that's how the Dear Departed.
We never even talked about the amazing practical effects, and honestly, all the computer effects in Galaxy Quest held up too. So
it's the same combination as Jurassic Park, Stan Winston and ILM working together.
Just really good, and for a 99 movie, no drop off from CGI is impressive. Rye Guy, what is your recommendation? Your Trek recommendation?
My Trek recommendation this week
is
a sequel to a film we've actually litigated in this very courtroom, Rian Johnson's Knives Out, and it's called Glass Onion.
Oh, no spoilers. I
won't spoil anything. Don't
it's
worry.
A Beatles documentary, I think.
No. As much as I enjoy the original, this
Spoiler,
might
the walrus
actually
was
be...
Paul.
Shut up! As much as I enjoy the original, this might actually be better. The satirical component is easily stronger, and the ensemble is absolutely unbeatable. It's one of those movies that is actually much stranger than you might suspect, and at times truly hilarious. It's currently streaming on Netflix, and it's a shame that you'll see it there first, because it fucking crushes in a crowded theater. Something that even a people-hating misanthrope like me can pick up on.
Yeah, I agree. I saw it in the theater. It's much better than I can't even imagine.
Any Ana de Armas?
No. Completely new cat. Somebody returns from the original, but they're playing a different character.
Oh, interesting.
It's Christopher Plummer. That's the twist.
Oh,
yes,
no.
they reanimated Christopher Plummer's corpse and put him in the movie.
Speaking of that, we didn't.
Christopher Plummer.
We didn't even talk about that. That Kirstie Alley just passed.
Yeah,
and
my God,
and it was the next day after we watched Wrath of Khan, and I looked over and Schlender and went, "You did it again. You killed another one."
I was so worried it was going to be Shatner.
Yeah,
I mean, R.I.P. Kirstie Alley. I mean, she was a beautiful woman. It's a real shame, and
she was really enthusiastic about being in a Star Trek movie too. That was one of those things of like she, for years and years afterwards, she was like, "I can't believe I got to be in a Star Trek movie." So
yeah, she was great.
Yeah.
So why didn't she reprise her role in the sequels?
Couldn't afford her.
Is that what it was?
I have no idea. I'm assuming so.
She was in that Tom Selleck movie at the same time. That Tom Selleck movie, Runaway. Remember that?
Well,
arguably she made the better choice there. I mean, Runaway, we all know, is one of the great films of the 20th century.
Exactly.
Well, dodging Search for Spock might not have been a bad thing.
Do you guys want to hear a Christopher Lloyd, Christopher Plummer thing? Real quick?
Absolutely.
All right, so I got to produce the interview for Christopher Lloyd's interview for the Buckaroo Banzai Blu-ray that Shout Factory put out. Heather Buckley actually conducted the interview, but I was there, and I was there with my cameraman Justin Cruz, who was the DP on Never Surrender, a Galaxy Quest documentary. And Christopher Lloyd was great. He was almost exactly what you imagine he'd be. There's a little Reverend Jim in him. And
gong.
There you go. And he was like, I don't know, he was 82 and he looked like he was 55. The guy was great. He couldn't have been nicer. So cool. And we said, "Hey, can we get you anything?" And he goes, "Oh, coffee." And it's like, okay. And we made coffee for him, the whole thing. very, very low maintenance. And after the interview and this great conversation that we had, he talked to us even after the cameras were off. I said, "What are you going to do now?" And he says, like, "Oh, I have to go to Canada, make a movie with Christopher Plummer." And I said, "Oh, that's great. You guys were both Klingons." And he goes, "Chris was a Klingon?" And I was like, yeah, he was, in part 6, he's the bad guy in Star Trek 6. And Christopher Lloyd said, "All right, great. Now we have something to talk about."
I love that.
Coffee.
That is a good
That's
story.
fantastic.
So I don't have a Trek recommendation. Like I said, I'm not a Trekkie, so I'm recommending a movie more in my wheelhouse. And it's the hottest new Oscar bait coming straight out of Norway. 2022's Troll. It's about a giant troll who awakens from his mountainous slumber to find that a lot has changed about the world around him. Will he learn to adjust to these changes in order to fit in, or will he simply smash everything in sight? Spoilers, it's kind of the second thing. This monster movie doesn't reinvent the wheel or anything. A lot of the elements are derivative of other works in the genre. However, it still does those things pretty well. From incompetent government bureaucrats to fruitless military counterattacks, Troll feels very familiar, but is bolstered by some great monster effects, despite being CGI, and just a dash, dare I say a pinch, of pathos. It is in Norwegian, however, so like most art house films, be prepared to don your reading glasses. Troll is currently streaming on Netflix. And with that, we're all out of show because we're running way over. But we want to thank our guest, Jack Bennett, for joining us. Thank you so much, Jack.
And for making you run over.
We don't mind. For you, it'll be okay. And we talked about 2 movies, so what can you do?
Listen, I had a blast. I always have a blast arguing passionately, too passionately about movies. And
No, we love that.
Well, that's why I love doing it with you guys, because my other friends just say, "Hey, it's getting really late." So.
And I just hate to bring this up, but it is getting kind of late. So if we could wrap this up right about now.
It is getting kind of late.
Also, I just want to say before we go that it was an absolute honor to get to interview all the people who made Galaxy Quest, and I'm very proud of my work that's in Never Surrender, a Galaxy Quest documentary. And there's so much that people didn't get to see. I hope that maybe one day a director's cut will be made available. But I got to tell you, man, if you like Galaxy Quest, every single person who worked on Galaxy Quest, if you met them in real life, they would not disappoint you. And I'm including Tim Allen, who was so generous to us and such a great interview, and then such a great guy, just talking to him for an hour after the interview. I'm very, very lucky that I get to be a parasite, hanging on to Galaxy Quest and having this be a part of my resume and a part of my life. So thank you guys for inviting me to come on and talk about one of my favorite films.
We appreciate that, and thank you for taking Wrath of Khan down a peg. Take that, Wrath of Khan.
No.
And we hope everyone will join us.
Somebody go, Jack!
Schlenzo! We hope everyone will join us again next time as the Reels of Justice keep turning.
Count it.
The lube.
Please follow us on Twitter at Reels of Justice, Instagram Reels of Justice, and Facebook.com/Reels of Justice.